Welcome to the Two Beans in a Pod.
Hey there.
Today, we're going to explore a truly mind-bending idea.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that you are part of the universe,
Yeah.
not just an observer standing apart from it.
That's right. It's a big one. In this deep dive, we'll be looking at how fundamentally connected we really are to everything around us.
And we'll be drawing on some interesting sources for this.
Yeah, we've got excerpts from Christopher Langan's YouTube interview on CTMU radio, and also some bits from his book, The Art of Knowing.
So the goal here, our sort of mission, is to understand this deep link, this intrinsic connection, but, keep it clear. Try to avoid getting lost in super technical jargon.
Definitely. Keep it grounded.
Okay, so let's start with that common feeling, the sense that we're separate, like we're here looking out of the world out there.
Right, that feeling of being an observer. Langan basically suggests that this feeling of separation, it's actually, it's an illusion.
An illusion. Okay, how so?
He proposes that consciousness, it isn't just locked inside our skulls. He thinks it exists throughout the universe.
Throughout the universe?
Yeah, in the form of what he calls identity operators. It's a bit of a term, but...
Identity operators. Okay, break that down. In simple terms, what are we talking about? What does that mean?
Think of it like this, maybe.
Yeah.
Everything, at a really fundamental level, takes in information, right?
Okay.
Then it processes that information,
Yeah.
does something with it, and then returns it. Puts something back out into the world as an external state.
So like an input, process, output kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. It's a constant exchange, like a loop of interaction happening everywhere.
Okay, but does that mean inanimate objects are conscious? Like, is my desk conscious? That sounds, a bit out there.
Yeah, it's a natural question. It's definitely a different kind of consciousness than, human self-awareness. Langan talks about levels.
Levels. Okay.
He suggests that physical objects, what he calls tertiary quantifiers, things like rocks, tables, the physical stuff, they actually depend on our consciousness, our observation, to manifest in the specific way they do.
Wait, so the rock needs me to be a rock in this specific way?
In a sense, yeah. And he also brings in quantum physics, pointing out that the rules down there, they're probabilistic, not deterministic. It's about possibilities, not fixed outcomes.
So it's not all rigidly set in stone. There's wiggle room.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. If it's not all predetermined, what is influencing what happens?
Good question.
Langan's perspective is that we, sort of through our collective consciousness or will, actually play a role in shaping the universe, in co-creating it.
Well, creating the universe.
Yeah. And he proposes that this whole interconnected process isn't just random either. It's guided or harmonized by a higher principle. We use the term God for this.
Okay, so not just chaos, but some kind of universal collaboration almost. Guided collaboration.
That's the gist of it. And you can see how the implications of this are, huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
How we understand reality and, crucially, our place in it. It stops being just a philosophical thought experiment. It fundamentally shapes how we see everything, how we interact with the world.
It really shifts your whole perspective. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about time then, because that feels pretty fundamental. We usually see it, marching forward, past, present, future, straight line.
That's the standard linear view, definitely our common experience.
Yeah.
But in The Art of Knowing, Langan introduces this idea of the self.
The self.
Yeah, the core observing self. He talks about its time invariance, meaning it's like a constant point of observation that doesn't actually change with time.
Huh. So like a stable center.
Exactly. It's the fixed point
Yeah.
from which we experience the flow, the connections between past, present, and future.
So even as we change, learn, grow older,
Yeah.
there's a core observational us that's constant.
That's the idea he puts forward. And our mental models of time, how we understand it, they aren't fixed either. They
Yeah.
evolve.
Right, as we learn.
Yeah, as we learn, as our brains develop. He even talks about how a sophisticated brain can model itself and its own learning process. It gets pretty meta.
Wow. Okay, so how does this concept of the self and evolving time models connect back to the universe as a whole?
Well, this leads into his big theory, the Cognition-Theoretic Model of the universe, the CTMU.
CTMU, okay.
In this model, time itself essentially becomes cognition, information processing, and space evolves through this distributed cognitive processing happening everywhere.
So time isn't just a clock ticking. It's more like the universe thinking, processing information.
You could say that. It's a deep way of looking at it. And he connects it to other ideas, like Wheeler's participatory universe, the idea that observation plays a role in reality.
Right. And didn't Stephen Hawking have some related ideas?
Yeah, Langan mentions Hawking's concept of imaginary time as well, suggesting these ideas resonate with a picture where consciousness isn't just a byproduct, but somehow fundamental.
Okay, so if time is linked to this cosmic cognition, what's the implication?
The really wild implication is that the origin of our concept of time, that stable, observing self we talked about, effectively becomes the origin of time itself.
Whoa, hold on. The self creates time.
It creates this kind of cosmogonic loop. The universe creates the observers define time through their cognition, and this process allows the universe to, in a sense, create itself continuously.
A self-creating universe. That's a massive idea.
It really is.
Okay, so if we're that deeply plugged into this self-creating cosmic process, what about free will? Do we actually get to choose anything? Or are we just, cogs in this giant universal machine?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And Langan, in that YouTube interview, he's actually very direct about it.
Yeah. What does he say?
He says, yes, we do have free will, unequivocally.
Okay. That's reassuring, I guess. But how does that square with being part of this, constantly unfolding universal creation?
He connects free will directly to that generative nature of reality. Because the universe, including us, including the medium around us, is constantly being recreated moment by moment. There's inherent freedom within that process of becoming. Choice is built into the regeneration.
Okay, but what about cause and effect? This happens, so that happens. Doesn't that limit our freedom? It often feels like our choices are constrained.
Right. Langan addresses this by introducing a concept he calls metacausation.
Metacausation. Okay, another term.
Yeah, it's basically a more complex view of causality. It's not just simple A causes B. It involves ordinary, past to future causation, but also a kind of influence that loops back, incorporating future possibilities or goals. It all happens in what he calls a closed loop or a constantive cycle.
So it's not just a straight line of dominoes falling. There's a feedback loop involved, looking ahead somehow.
Exactly. It's a much richer, more dynamic picture of causality. And that picture, he argues, absolutely allows for and even requires free will.
Interesting. And he connects this to physics too, right?
Yeah, in The Art of Knowing, he also uses a cybernetic analogy. He describes reality as being like a predictor.
A predictor.
Yeah, a system that sort of anticipates and responds. It rewards actions that align with its inherent laws, think physics, logic, and it frustrates actions that go against them.
Like learning to ride a bike. You follow the laws of balance, you succeed. You ignore them, you fall.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. So the laws of physics aren't just external rules imposed on us. They're the means by which the universe, or reality, detects, analyzes, and evaluates our actions. It's feedback.
So the universe is constantly giving us feedback on our choices through its basic laws.
Precisely. And this ties back to us being integral parts. We are contributing to reality's structure. We can either consciously use the freedom inherent in the system, or we can be sort of unconsciously used by the system, like tools within its processes. But either way, he concludes, free will is operating. It's part of the dynamic.
And to make those intentional choices.
Right. He points out that intentional self-creation, making deliberate choices, requires us to have these internal sensors like our awareness, our consciousness, and also a sense of value, what he calls a stratified utility function. Basically knowing what's better or worse to guide our actions.
Makes sense. You need awareness and values to have meaningful choice. Okay, this seems like a good moment to just pause for a sec.
Good idea.
If you, listening out there, are finding this deep dive into our connection with the universe fascinating and maybe a little bit mind-bending,
yeah, probably.
please do hit that like button. It really helps other people discover these kinds of conversations.
Yep, helps the algorithm find fellow curious minds.
And if you want to explore more perspectives like this, more deep dives into different ideas, definitely subscribe to the Two Beans in a Pod.
We'd love to have you along for the ride.
Okay, so we've talked about separation being an illusion, about time being linked to cognition, and about free will existing within this dynamic reality. Where does this leave us?
Well, it leads us away from thinking of ourselves as just passive observers. Langan really emphasizes that we are fundamentally involved. We're participants in the universe's ongoing process of structuring itself.
So we're not just audience members watching the cosmic play unfold. We're actually on stage, part of the cast.
Even more integrated than that, potentially. According to the CTMU framework, we are like like microcosms, little images of the entire universe within the universe itself.
Microcosms.
Yeah, and we function as agents, agents through whom the universe actually realizes its own potential, its own being, comes to know itself in a way.
Wow. So our existence, our consciousness, isn't just some random fluke. It's actually essential for the universe's own self-realization.
That's a key takeaway from his perspective, yes. Our connection isn't one of detached observation. It's one of fundamental, integral involvement in the very fabric of reality.
Yeah, that definitely gives you a new way to think about things. The whole idea that we're not separate little specks floating around, but we're deeply interwoven and actually playing a part. It changes how you see your place in everything.
It absolutely offers a profound shift, potential shift in understanding our place, maybe even our purpose.
This exploration, looking at Langan's ideas, we really hope it's given you, our listener, a new angle to consider your place in the universe. Not as that separate observer,
Right.
but as a truly integral part of it all. If you enjoyed this conversation, please don't forget to hit like and definitely subscribe for more deep dives like this one.
Yeah, and digging into this interconnectedness, it naturally opens up even deeper questions, doesn't it? Like the fundamental nature of consciousness itself.
Exactly, like Langan's idea of consciousness as these identity operators potentially present everywhere, not just in brains.
Right. And it makes you question if our standard, purely physicalist scientific viewpoint, can it really capture the full picture? Can it fully explain the richness of reality and our own awareness within it?
Langan seemed critical of that limitation in the interview, didn't he? Talking about physicists reasoning under physical confinement.
Yeah, he suggests that view might be too narrow to grasp the whole story, especially when it comes to consciousness and the universe's deeper structure.
These are definitely the kinds of big, profound questions that come up when you start to move beyond just observing.
And embrace the idea of being an active, maybe even essential participant in this incredible universe.
Well, thank you for listening to Two Beans in a Pod.
Thanks, everyone.
If you are interested in the book we mentioned, The Art of Knowing, please do order it from the link below.